Today, I will be showing you how I made this beautiful dinner dress you are seeing on your screen right now with Ankara fabric. The key point to note about this style is the structured Gong sleeves, the asymmetric neckline, the princess dart bustier, and a well-fitted pencil skirt with a major side ruffle. Please pay attention as we proceed. This is the pattern paper I'll be using for this project. So it's folded into two like this, and I'll be using the top of this paper as my starting line. I'll enter my bust point measurement. Then I'll draw a straight line. Another measurement I'll enter is my under bust point measurement. And I'll connect a straight line. Then I'll enter my waist point measurement. I'll as well draw a straight line. So I'm going to use a marker to bolden these lines. I'll name this with my bust points, my under bust points, and my waist line. I'll enter my shoulder measurement divided by 2. And where I marked my shoulder measurement, I'll go down by 1 inch for shoulder slope. And then I'm going to mark my neck width so I can connect the shoulder slope. So the neck width I'll be working with is 4, and I'm going to mark that. So I'll connect the neck width to the shoulder slope. And then from the shoulder slope, I'm going to enter my armhole measurement. To get your armhole measurement, you divide your bust measurement by 6 and add 1.5, and that will give you your armhole measurement. So I'm going to mark my own armhole measurement. I'll come to this side and check if what I have here is the same with the shoulder measurements I marked, and it's the same. So I'm going to draw a straight line from the shoulder slope to the armhole measurements. Then I'll draw another line on this side. So I'll look for the center of this armhole measurement, and the measurement I have here is 8. So the midpoint is definitely going to be 4 inches. I'll mark 4 inches, and then where I mark the midpoint, I'll go in by half an inch and I'll mark it. I'm going to connect a straight line to the half an inch, starting from the shoulder. Then I'll come to this line, this my chest line. I'll enter my bust measurements divided by 4. And I'm going to draw a curve starting from the midpoint of my armhole to the bust measurement I just entered. That's my armhole curve. So we now have the armhole curve. The next thing I'll mark is the bust span measurement. So I'm going to enter the bust span measurement from the bust point to the waistline. To get your bust span measurement, you divide your bust measurement by 12 and add 1 inch. So I enter my bust span measurement. And I'll draw a line. The total that I want to enter here is 2 inches. And then that 2 inches, I'm going to divide it into 2 and enter it both sides, but not equal. First of all, I'll enter 0.75 inches towards the center front, only on the bust point and the waistline. I'll draw a line. I've entered 0.75, remaining 1.25 inches. So I will come to this other side and enter 1.25 inches. And if I measure it, it's a total of 2 inches. And then I'll come to the bust point. I'll come down by half an inch at the bust point. I'm going to draw like a curve to connect the dart leg to that marking. I will draw it for the both side. I'll just use a marker to bolden the lines so you can see very clear. So now I'll come to the bust band line. From the bust point, I'll go up by half an inch and I'll connect it to the bust band line. So now I'll come to the armhole line where I marked the midpoint on the armhole line, not the cuff, the midpoint of the armhole line. I'll draw a curve to connect it to the half inches I go up with at the bust band. So on this line, I'm going to mark half inch on both sides. After marking half inch on both sides at the armhole, I now use a curve ruler to draw a curve to connect it back to this half an inch I go up with. I'm going to replace the 1 inch dart on this line, the down line of this dart. From the armhole curve, you just go out by 1 inch. Already draw a line more. So you connect the 1 inch. I'm going to draw another curve. That's going to be the new armhole line. I'm just going to clean this center line off to get a clear picture of what I'm talking about. The next thing I'll do is to enter all my body circumference measurements. Okay, so I'll enter my bust measurements divided by 4 at the bust point. And then I'll come to the under bust point and enter my round under bust measurements divided by 4. And then I'm going to measure this dart, which is 2 inches, then I'll replace the dart by the side. After entering the under bust round measurement, I added 2 inches to it, which is the replacement for this dart. And I'll come to my waist measurement and do the same thing. So I'll enter my waist measurement and I'll add 2 inches as a replacement of my dart. Then I'll draw a line to connect all the markings. After that, I'll add 1 inch allowance by the side for stitching. The marker is my original line, while the pencil is my allowance. So now it's time to draft my neckline. The neckline I want to use for this dress is asymmetric neckline. So already have my neck width, which is 4 inches. I'm going to come down by 6 inches. I'll just mark the 6 inches down. So I'm going to use a tracing wheel to trace out this neckline I just marked, so that when I open it up, I'll know where my neckline is, and I will now draw the asymmetric neckline. I'll open it up. So I'm going to cut this out now. Where I marked red is where I'll be cutting out. This is what we have. I'm going to keep the 2 side piece aside and then I'll work on the neckline. To get the asymmetric neckline, I'm going to draw a line from the left neck width to the right neck depth. You can draw it whichever way you want. It depends on where you want your asymmetric neckline to face. This is it. I may not want it to be exactly straight, so I'll use a curve. I'll give it a little curve, just very little curve, like this. That's my neckline right there. I'm not going to cut this out yet until I place it on my fabric. Then I'll cut it out together with my fabric. So I'll now keep the front pattern aside and we move to the back pattern. This is for the back pattern. First of all, I'm going to mark out 1 inch by the side here for my zipper allowance. But this is my zipper allowance. The zipper allowance is on the center back, and the line is where all my measurements is going to start from. So first of all, I'll enter my shoulder measurements divided by 2, starting from the zipper allowance line. Then where I marked my shoulder measurements, I'll go down by 1 inch for shoulder slope. I'll come to the center back and mark my neck width, starting from the zipper line. The neck width I use for the front is 4 inches, so I'm using the same for the back. And I'll draw a line to connect the neck width and the shoulder slope. From the shoulder slope, I'm going to enter my armhole measurement. The armhole measurement I use for the front is the same thing I will use for the back, which is 8 inches. I'm going to confirm my shoulder measurements, so I'll have a straight line. I'll draw a straight line. So now I'm going to draw another line this other side, but I have to confirm and make sure that I have a straight line. So I'll measure from the top of the paper, being the starting line, to where the armhole measurement stop, and then I'll mark the same thing this other side. Then I'll connect the marking to have a straight line. This will serve as my chest line. At the chest line, I'm going to enter my bust measurement divided by 4. Then I'll come to the armhole line and look for the midpoint. Where I have the midpoint, I'll go in by 0.25 inches. And I'm going to draw a straight line to connect with the shoulder slope first of all. And then I'll draw a curve from that midpoint to meet my bust measurement that I entered. So that's our back armhole. So now I'm going to enter my full length, my waist point for the back, which is also my full length. Remember I told you I'm going to join these to a skirt to form a gown. So I'm going to draw a straight line. The difference between the front waist line, the front waist point and the back waist point is 2 inches. So the front is longer than the back by 2 inches. And I know I did not mark that out, or I did not only debust that on my front pattern. I will later mark it out after cutting so that it will match up with the back pattern. I'm going to enter my waist measurement divided by 4 at the waistline. And then I'm going to look for the midpoint of my waist measurement. And where I have the midpoint, I mark it, and then I'll measure what I have from the zipper line to the midpoint. And I'll mark the same thing on the chest line. Now I'm going to draw a straight line to connect the two marking. Then on this line, at the waistline, I'm going to mark ½ inch on both sides. Then I'm going to connect the ½ inch on both sides I just marked to the, and that's my back dart. This is where I marked my waist measurement. So I'm going to replace this 1 inch for that at the side, so I don't have shortage after I cut out my fabric. So I replace the 1 inch, and then I'm going to add 1 inch allowance. So this is my waist measurement plus the 1 inch dart replacement and 1 inch for allowance. Then I'll come to my chest line and enter my bust measurement, and then I'll add 1 inch allowance. I already have my bust measurement, so I'll add 1 inch for allowance, and I'm going to draw a straight line. What I'll do next is to mark out my neck dip for the back. So my neck dip for the back is 1.5 inch. So I'll mark the 1.5 inch on the zipper line. I'm going to draw a curve to meet the neck width, and that's our back pattern. Then at the waistline, I'll go in by ½ inch. Then I'll connect the ½ inch to the waistline. This particular one is to remove the zip buck at the back. So I'm going to remove the same ½ inch, this other at the zip side, and I'll connect it to the center back. So I don't need to replace this particular dart, this zipper dart I just made now, because Even if when after making your dress and you wear it, you're still going to have that bulge with that. So that bulge is what we eliminate. We don't need to replace it. So that's it for the back pattern, and this is where we are going to be cutting out. Where I'm using the red marker is where, yeah, is where we are going to be cutting out. The dart is not to be cut out, it's just to mark it on your fabric and then stitch it when sewing. I've cut out the back pattern and this is what we have. So we move over to cutting it on our fabric. So I finished cutting it out on my main fabric and this is what we have. I added half-inch allowance around the bust side. This is folded. This is folded into two. The center front is folded into two, and then the side front is two pieces, and this is the back pattern and it's two pieces as well. So now I'm going to keep the center front pattern aside, and I'll work on the side front. As you can see, the side front is longer than the side back. So in order for it to match up, I'm going to minus 2 inches down here. Remember the back pattern is shorter by 2 inches. So I'm going to minus the 2 inches down here since I did not impute a bust dart. So I'll go up by 2 inches and mark. And then I'll come to the center here. Only on the pattern paper, I'll go in by half an inch and mark. And I'm going to draw a slant line, a diagonal line to connect the two marking. Then I'm going to cut that part out. Both the front and back is equal now. I'll keep this aside. Then I'll go ahead and notch where we have our dart on the fabric so that I'll know where the dart starts from. So I'll just give it a little notch on the two sides of the dart. I'm going to mark that point on the main fabric where the dart will stop. And that is it. Then I'm going to go ahead and place this on the lining I'm going to use, then cut it out. So I finished cutting out the lining and it's at the back of this fabric, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and iron a stay on the main fabric. I'll iron a stay on the main fabric and then paper stay on the lining. So this is the main fabric. Iron and a stay on the front main fabric, as you can see. And for the back main fabric, I did not iron anything on it. It's only the plain fabric. And this is the lining. I iron a paper stay on the lining on the front fabric and the back fabric. So now I'm going to work on the front neckline. So I'm going to place the lining first and then I'll place the main fabric on top of it with the right side facing each other like this. And I'll place the pattern paper on top of it because I want to trace out this line, the neckline I drew earlier. I'm going to use a pin to hold the pattern paper on the main fabric so it doesn't shift when I'm cutting. So I've pinned it down. You have to be sure that the angle is facing the side that you want it to face before you cut it out. Like my one, it's going to be on the right hand side of my dress. So that's the side that it's facing now. So I'm going to cut it out following this line that I drew earlier. I finished cutting it and this is what the neckline is like. This is what I'll be using to pad bust. It's called bust pad. So if you don't want to use this thing, maybe you're a busty person and you don't want to use the breast pad, you can use a wadding to create your own pad. But I'll be using the foam. Then to create the bust pad, I will first of all mark out the under bust points. I'll come up to the neckline. I'll just come down like 1 inch and mark it. This way my bust part will start from and it will end right at my under bust point. For the side, I'll just go in from the midpoint here. I'll go in by 5 inch. Then I'm going to mark and it will stop right at the under bust. So this is what it is. I'm just going to pin it down. So I'll not be confused when I want to stitch it together. I have to be sure that the two are in the right position. It's time to stitch this together. So first I'll pick one of these and I'll place it on the side. I'll make sure that the under bust align. That's where the padding stops. So I'll make sure that it's equal. And I'll use a pin to hold it. I'll take it to my machine and I'll stitch it together while I'll use my hand to control the pattern to make sure that they align together while stitching. After I finish stitching one side, I'll do the same thing to this other side. I've finished stitching the bust and this is what we have. I'll go ahead and trim off the excess pad at the same side. I'll notch around the bust area so that there will be no bulge when I turn it to the right side. When you are notching, be careful not to cut into your seam. So you can see our bust is set. So I will also stitch the front lining as well, the same way I stitch the main fabric. I'm done stitching the lining. I'll go ahead and notch around the bust area as well. So I'm going to iron the seam, the bust area, and I'll bring in my tailor's arm. I made this tailor's arm myself. So if you want to know how I made this tailor's arm, comment below and I'll make a video. We are going to join our lining to the main fabric. I'll place the front fabric, the main fabric like this, and I'll place the lining on top with the right side facing each other. And then I'll take it to my machine and stitch around the neckline using 1/2 inch. And I'll stitch the side, the two sides, and that will be all. I'll not stitch the armhole because it's going to have a sleeves. It's a dress and it's going to have a sleeve, so I don't need to stitch around the armhole. So I'll just turn only the neckline and the two sides. So I'm done joining this at the neckline and the sides, and I'll just notch the ankle so that when I turn it to the right side it will not bulge. So just a little notch and be careful not to cut into your seam. I'll turn this to the right side now. So this is the right side of the fabric and you can see the asymmetric neckline. I'll just go ahead and iron the neckline and the sides, the seam I just made. I'll also add the hemming gum to inside of the neckline part of this dress to hold the neck together so it will not shift and the lining will not come out when wearing it. I'm done pressing the neckline. You can see how clean it is. It came out very well. So I'm going to keep this aside and then bring in the back pattern so we work on it. So this is the back pattern and this is the lining for it. I did not iron any stay on the main fabric because it's optional. I'm just going to sew the lining to the main fabric. I'll first of all hold the dart where I marked. I'll hold the dart on both sides of the pattern. I'll stitch the dart and then I'll also make a dart on the lining. Then after the that, I'm going to stitch it. I'll keep it right side facing each other like this. And I'll stitch the neckline and the two sides, that's the zip side and the side of the fabric. I'll not stitch the armhole and the shoulder point. I'm done stitching. See my darts. I hold that on both the lining and the main fabric, and I stitch the neckline and the side. You can trim off the darts if you want to, but I won't trim mine. So I'll turn this to the right side and give it a quick press. When pressing the neckline, I'll also add a gum stay inside the neckline area so that it will hold the lining and the fabric together. I'm done pressing it and move to the next stage, which is joining the front and the back together. But first, I'll place the back pattern, the two pieces, with the right side facing each other like this. And I'm going to stitch it down at the zip area using the zip allowance I added, using a loose stitch because I'm still going to lose it later and to fix my zipper. I'm done joining it at the zip area. So I'm going to open it up like this. And then I'll bring in the front pattern. I'll keep it on top with the right side facing each other, just like this. And then I'll stitch the shoulder together. When you place both the front and the back piece on top of each other, and you make sure that the shoulder line aligned very well. And then you open up the lining of the front pattern and take it over the back pattern like this. So the back pattern is just going to be inside, and then you're going to run a stitch to hold the two together, and then you do the same thing for this other side. So I'll go over and stitch it now and then bring it back. I'm done joining it at the shoulder line, and you can see my shoulder is very neat both inside and outside. Our princess dart bustier is ready. So we are going to go over and make the skirts for this to form a gown. To make the skirt parts, I'm going to use my already drafted skirt sloper. I'm just going to place this on my fabric and then cut it out. If you want to know how I made this skirt pattern, I'll put the link on the description so you can check it out. I've placed my skirt sloper on the fabric, and now I'm going to mark the length of my gown. The total length of my gown is 48. So I'm going to minus my arc length, which I've already made with the bustier, which is 17. And then from that 17, I'll mark 48 being my gown length. And I'm going to add 2 inches for folding. Whatever measurement I have here, I'm going to take it down to the hem of my dress. And I'll use a ruler to connect a straight line. And I'm going to add half inches on the top here for stitching. So I'm just going to cut it out following the line I drew and following the side of this sloper. I don't need to add an allowance again because as you can see, this place here is my allowance. My main measurement stop where the blue marker stopped, and this extra here is my allowance. So I've already added allowance to my sloper. So this is the front pattern. I'm going to do the same thing to the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I already marked my full length, which is here. And I'll go ahead and extend this line to the full length. And I'll extend this one too to the full length. I'll just add the stitching allowance up here and then cut it out. So this is it. This is the back pattern. It's two pieces, and this is the front pattern. It's one piece but folded at the center front. If you open it up, it will be one. So now I'm going to place this on my lining and trace it out. So I finished cutting the lining. This is it for both the front and the back. Two pieces for the back and one piece on fold for the front. For the front pattern, I want to mark out where I'll place the ruffles. I'll just go up by 5 inches and mark, and I'll go down by 5 inches as well, which is also my underbutt line. And I'll give it a little notch at that 2 points. That is where my ruffles will start and stop. The line here is 10 inches. Just give it a little notch. So now I'll go ahead and iron a paper stay on the landing before we proceed to sewing. So I finished ironing my paper stay on the lining, and you can see. And also note that the lining is shorter than the main fabric by 2 inches. So the 2 inches allowance we added at the end for folding, we did not add it to the lining. I've also come ahead to cut out this fabric I'll be using as a ruffle. So now it's time to stitch. I'll start from the front pattern. So this is the front fabric on the table, and you remember I mark out the side where I'm going to fix the ruffle, and I just have to highlight it using my chalk. So I'm going to fix the ruffle. Start from the right side and it will be dropping on the left side. So now this is the ruffle I cut out. It's just the full length of the Ankara fabric. You know the Ankara fabric is by 45, so it's just the full length of it. And the width is just, I just cut out random something. I think it's okay, it's about 19 to 20 inches. And I had to fold the side. You can see the hem is clean. I had to fold the side all around. So I'm going to place this on the front pattern before I turn it with the lining. So what I'll do is to pick up the side, and I'll place it on the place where I marked where my ruffle will start from, and I'll use a pin to hold it down. And then for the remaining part of this, I'm going to pleat it on the front pattern till it gets to where I marked that my ruffle is going to stop. So this is it. I finished pinning it down. I'll just take it to my sewing machine and stitch it down just to hold these pleats together. I'm just stitching the ruffle to the main fabric. Now it's time to turn the lining. So I'm going to place my lining on the main fabric like this, with the right side facing each other. And then I'll take it to my sewing machine. I'm going to stitch down the hem of this skirt first. After holding down the hem, before I will stitch the side. But first I'll hold the hem. Remember the lining is shorter than the main fabric by 2 inches. That's why we're going to start from the hem. So after stitching the hem, I'll bring it back and show you the next thing to do. I finished stitching the down part. I just make sure that the hem of the lining and the fabric, the main fabric align, and I stitch it down. So now I'm going to drag the lining up to meet the top of the main fabric, and that way the 2 inches allowance we added at the down part will go up. So now to stitch the side, just going to be careful so you don't stitch your ruffle, this other side of your ruffle. You just have to put it in the middle like this, and then you stitch this side first. Make sure that the top of the main fabric and the top of the lining align together, and you stitch the side down to the end, and then you stitch this other side as well. So I'll go over and stitch my own, then bring. I'm done stitching, and I'm just going to turn this to the right side. So this is it. This is what I have. So I'll bring in the back pattern and we do the same thing. Join the lining and the fabric together. So this is the one piece of the back pattern. I'll bring in the lining and I'll place it on top like so. And I will start stitching from the down the same way I did for the front. So after stitching the down part of this, I'll now drag it up and then start stitching the side from the top. At this point, make sure you place the right lining on the right fabric. If you don't place the right lining on the right fabric, it's going to affect your work. I made the same mistake. If you check my lining, it's not aligning well with my fabric. This, as you can see, I made this mistake and it affected my work. I had to loosen everything and start all over again. So make sure you place the right lining on the right fabric. Better still, when cutting out the lining, indicate the side that is facing the side and the side that is facing the zipper. That way, you not make a mistake. I just hope you understand me. I'm done joining the lining and the main fabric at the down part. I'm going to drag the lining up to meet the main fabric like this. So after I drag it up like this, I'll now stitch the side starting from the top down to the end. I finished stitching the both pieces of the back side. So I'm going to turn this to the right side. So I'll go ahead and mark the side. So I'll know which side is the side. Now this is the zipper and this is the side. I'm going to go ahead and give this a good press. I'll press both the front and the back pieces, then you proceed to fixing it to the top. I'm done ironing the skirt pattern. This is the back pattern. You can see the two pieces. And then this is the front pattern. See our ruffles. It's time to join it to the top. I'm going to place this. I'll join the front pattern to the front pattern and then the back to the back by just placing it with the right side facing each other and stitching it down. What you do is that you look for the center of this blouse and then you place it on the center of the skirt pattern. You're going to look for the center and you place it and pin it down before you stitch it together. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and stitch the front part together. Then after that, I'll stitch the back pattern. I'll just place it and check the right side of it and stitch. I'll take the right side of it and then place it on the top like this and then I'll stitch it down. So I'll take it to my sewing machine and join all of them together, then bring it back. I'm done joining it at the waist point. I'm going to turn this over. So I'll first of all join the slip allowance together, starting from the up here down to the end. I'll just make a loose stitch because I'm going to still use it for my zipper. So I'll just make a loose stitch down to the end at the zipper allowance before I'll now shape the sides. This is the front pattern of my dress and this is the side where I fix the ruffle. So this other side, I'm going to fix a loop that will be holding my ruffles to this side. So I already created a loop. This is 4 inches long and just half an inch wide. This is the loop, as you can see. I'll just measure 2 inches from the side pattern, just at the waistline. Now mark it. So that's where I'm going to fix this loop. I'll fix it and then I'll bring it back. I'll fix the loop, as you can see. But it's going to be like this. Just going to pass the ruffles through the loop like this. So this is how it's going to be looking like. So now let's move to shaping of the gown. To shape this gown, I'm just going to place the ruffles inside. Be careful not to stitch your ruffles together with the dress. So I'm just going to hold the two sides and make sure that it aligns at the armhole area and then at the side down to the end. And the same thing this other side as well. Now I'm going to use half an inch to stitch it down the both side of the dress. I'm done shaping my dress, so I'll go ahead and fix the zipper. I'm just losing the zipper area where I will fix the zip, and then I'll go ahead and measure how long I want my slit to be at the back, and I'll lose it up to that point, and then I'm going to start tighten the stitch between the zipper, between where the zipper stop and where my slit will stop. Remember, I made a loose stitch here before.
Let's go
Then
over
after
to
fixing
the
the zipper,
sleeves.
we move to the sleeves. So I'm done fixing my zipper and my slit. Okay, so this is for the sleeves. I'm using this pattern paper to make the sleeves, and then I'll transfer it to the main fabric. And I'll just go ahead and enter my measurement. The top of this paper is my starting line. So I'll mark my cap height line. And I'll mark my full length, my sleeve length. At the cap height line, I'll enter my bicep measurement. Now I'm going to draw a diagonal line to meet the top of the center here. Note that this paper is folded into two, and this is the center, and this is the center. And then I'll look for the midpoint of this line. I'll go in here by 2 inches, and I'll draw a curve starting from that 2 inches to meet the midpoint. And then I'm going to draw another curve facing downward to meet my bicep measurement. This one is going to be a soft curve, not a deep curve. And I'll come to the sleeve hem and enter my round sleeves measurement. I'll connect it to my bicep measurement. This is basically my basic sleeves. I'll cut this out. I'm going to place this on my fabric, and then we add the extra allowance we're going to add. Just wash. This is the fabric I'll be using. It's folded into two. It's 4 in total because it's for the 2 sleeves. And this is the folded side. I will go ahead and mark 3 inches from the folded side. And I will draw a line. Then I'll bring in my sleeve pattern, and I'll place it at that line where I drew. I'll place it on the line, and I'll use pin to hold it down. I'll extend this line to reach the hem. Then this other side, I'm going to add 1 inch for stitching. And at the hem, I'll add 1 inch. I'm going to cut it out like this, following the line I draw. This is for the sleeves. I'll go ahead and cut out the lining for this. Don't cutting out the lining is here at the back. So this 3 inches I added is it depends on one's preference. You can decide to add 5 inches here to extend it by 5 inches. It depends on what you want. Like if you like it to be very big, if you like it to be very big, you can add up to 5 inches, 7 inches, depending on what you want. But I don't like it very big. I just like my stuff moderate. That's why I added 3 inches. I have my 2 sleeves here, and then I have the 2 lining here as well. So I'll go ahead and iron a paper stay on the lining, on both lining. And as for the main fabric, I'm going to iron a collar stay on it. This is collar stay. So in order to give it that structure, for it to stand, I have to use this collar stay to make it stand. So I iron the collar stay on the main fabric, while I'll iron a paper stay on the lining. This is the sleeves. I have ironed the collar stay on the sleeves. The space you are seeing here is the allowance I added. So that's where my stitch will be running through. And this is the lining. I've ironed the paper stay on the lining. I'll go ahead and stitch the lining and the main fabric together. I'll keep the fabric like this. I'll place the lining on top with the right side facing each other like this. Okay, this is where I'm going to keep it. So I'll just take it to my machine, and I'm going to first of all join it here. After joining it here, that's the end of the sleeves. I'll bring it back, then show you the next thing I'm going to do. I'm done joining it. You can see the front and this is the back. So now I'm going to fold it like this, and I'll run a stitch. I'm going to stitch fabric to fabric and lining to lining, just straight down using 1 inch, just the 1 inch that I left here, straight down. This is what it looks like after closing the sleeves. So I'm going to turn this to the right side, and this is it after turning it to the right side. I'll just go ahead and iron round the sleeve first before we move to the next stage. So I'm done pressing the sleeves, and this is what we have now. So now I'll go ahead and measure the armhole of this dress. So what I have altogether is 18 inches. So I'll make sure that after pleating the top of this, what is remaining is 18 inches. So I'll just measure around first of all. What I have here is 26. So I'll just split. I'll look for the center. This is the center now. I'll just mark it. So I'm going to make a few pleats up to this point that the slanting starts. I'm holding both the lining and the main sleeve together. I'll be pinning it down. So this is it. I just pleated it 3-3 and I pleated it upward, the both sides. I couldn't use my pin to hold it because of the collar stay that I use. It's too hard for my pin, so I use a needle and thread to hold it down. So I'll just fix this to my dress. So I'll just pass it inside. My dress is this is the wrong side of my dress, so I'll just pass this through the right side of my dress, and I'll fix the center point of this sleeve to the shoulder of my dress like this. I will use a pin to hold it, and then I'm going to just hold it down and stitch around the sleeve like this. So I'll do this to this side and then do it to the second sleeve and bring it back. So I'm done fixing the sleeves. You can see how it's standing. So I'm done with this. I'll just go ahead and give my gown a good press and then put it in the mannequin so you see the results. So this is the end result. It's really beautiful. Please like this video and make sure you subscribe before you go. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.